Welcome back to When Bad Things Happen to Good People, a podcast about censorship and the arts. My name is Todd Sullivan. Joining me as always is Peter Raman.
Hello, hello.
Today we are live talking about and finishing our look at George Orwell's 1984. Play high. I think the live version always has that weird little
It seems to.
hingly wingly.
It's kind of like a bonus.
It is kind of like a bonus. That's how you know you're getting us alive.
That's right.
And in person on the air on Podbean Live.
That's right. You know, extra no censorship when we're live.
Exactly. The Big Brother has to come in and pull the plug on us manually.
That's right. Yeah.
In our little basement studio here.
Yeah. Where we have no telescreen.
Well, there's two computer monitors over
Yeah,
there.
I
Is there a
guess.
webcam attendant? Got a webcam
Yeah.
over there? Okay, maybe
That's for work.
maybe there's one telescreen
Yeah.
that somebody
One telescreen, but
you gotta.
only if I connect to my work VPN.
My webcam that I bought, I think last year, came with a little thing that you put on top, and then it closes and like hides the.
Oh yeah,
the camera
no, I
when
have
you're
a
not
thing I
using
can
it.
close it, but it's just then I can't log into my computer.
You have a face
It
login?
won't recognize my face. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Although my webcam wasn't working. Oh, I'm so hiccupy. Normally you don't hear these things because
Welcome to the magic of live.
yeah, my webcam wasn't working for a while. I had to like plug it into a couple of different ports on my
Oh,
USB
really?
hub before it would be
wow.
like, oh yeah, now I remember how to work.
Hmm.
Yeah, all right. So we're live. We're talking about 1984.
Yeah, where they didn't necessarily have webcams per se, but every kind of public area had a telescreen, which functioned as like a TV, webcam,
Yeah.
propaganda
Yeah.
machine. You know, it was just this ubiquitous thing that you always kind of had to interact with, right? You're never truly alone.
It wasn't
In
really
1984.
the internet, but it was pretty similar if
Yeah.
you just sort of think of the internet as primarily being
It was like interactive CCTV,
interactive CCTV.
kind of, right?
Yeah.
Like,
And yeah, one channel that you could watch
that's right. Yeah.
that would, give you the news from.
You know, and you got to make sure you tune in for your 2 minutes of hate, right? Because you wouldn't want to miss that. That's a highlight of the week on the telescreen. So.
That's the movie I watched before we get into discussion of the book. I watched the 1984 film version of 1984 yesterday, which starred. Oh man, I'm gonna think of his name now. I have to look it up. But it actually opened with the 2 minutes of hate or the 3 minutes of hate. Just these people sort of screaming at this
Yeah.
big screen, which I thought was an interesting way to like open the film and sort of create a sense of the world.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of dropping you right in
Yeah.
to the deep end a little bit with 2 minutes of hate right off the top. No context, just
No context. And that ends up being, I think, one of my bigger issues with the film is that a lot of it is pretty contextless because so much of the context from the book comes from his internal monologue. And there is almost none of that.
Like there's no voiceover at all in the.
Minimal.
Oh, really?
And when it comes, it tends to be just when he's writing in his journal.
Wow, that's a strong choice.
But yeah, and it's
Considering how internalized almost all the struggles in this book are,
yeah,
right?
and how so much of I mean, there's elements of the world that are, that gets sussed out just from being dropped into it and from living in it, and a certain amount of that carries over in the film. But I think there's a lot that gets missed and a lot that gets lost, and it's kind of unfortunate.
Well, or maybe it was a film really designed for those who had read the book, right? There are certain films like that where they get made and they skip a lot of stuff because they expect people to know already what the world is about. And I understand as a filmmaker, it lets you take certain shortcuts in terms of not having to world build as much and you can focus on certain things. But yeah, I mean, I think no context in this case would be kind of tough because it is so much of an internal book. I mean, it's about, ultimately this book is kind of about knowing what you think before you think it yourself kind of thing and controlling that, right? Like, so it is very much focused internally, and to not have kind of the voiceover or the ability to know the character's thoughts would be pretty crazy.
Yeah, and it from being done that way, it sucks some amount of that context and understanding out of the scenes that we see. Like, we do get the flashback of Winston stealing the chocolate from his sister, but it's kind of weirdly contextless, that you're just kind of left to fill in a lot of the blanks of the bigger picture of like the fact that they're suffering, because it doesn't explain that like they're starving or they're hungry. It's just like it flashes to the baby sitting on the mother's, not baby, but toddler sitting on the mother's lap holding the chocolate, and Winston steals it, runs away and eats it, and that's pretty much it. There's a little bit of voiceover there where he talks about, I knew what I was doing and yada 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 yada, but it doesn't have the context. And then kind of, I think the most interesting and maybe controversial change is the end.
Don't tell me it's a happy ending.
It's not, but it's not quite the ending of the book.
Oh.
It kind of, so let me read to you the way Wikipedia describes the end. So Winston's at the Chestnut Tree Cafe. He meets Julia there, which is a little bit different than the book. They have their conversation over Victory Gin and impassively exchange a few words about how they betrayed each other. In spite of everything they have gone through, they still reaffirm their bond and express desire to see each other again.
Oh, wow. Talk about missing the point, eh?
I don't think that's... I mean, you could see it that way, but I don't think the film in that moment really sells that they're reaffirming their bond. It is very similar to the book where it's like, we should see each other again. But there's the sense of they're just kind of going through the motions.
Okay.
After she leaves, Winston watches a broadcast of himself on a large telescreen, humbly and remorsefully confessing his crimes against the state and imploring forgiveness from the populace. That's different too. But I think, there are earlier scenes when we see people who have been captured and then, released, confess their crimes in the film. I think maybe that's the way that they're showing that someone has sort of been flipped. But here now, upon hearing a news report declaring the Oceanian army's utter rout of Eurasia's forces in North Africa, Winston, appearing to have been deprived of his freedom to think and feel for himself and reduced to a mere shell of a man, soon to be deprived of his physical existence, looks at the still image of Big Brother that appears on the telescreen, but then quickly turns away from it and looks in the direction of Julia with tears in his eyes, and the words, "I love you," are heard whispered in his voice.
Wow.
So the film basically implies that
he somehow preserved his
love for Julia, that they never took that away.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, very different from the way the book.
It is the opposite, in fact.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's I don't know how to feel about that.
This reminds me of the film version of The Chocolate War, where they changed the end dramatically, right?
That's a good point. I did not see it, but I remember you talking about it.
Yeah, like it was such a piss off that they just manipulated that so that it changed for me anyway, changed the context of the whole movie and kind of really like the point of the movie, right? Which, ultimately the book asks that question, do I dare disturb the universe? And the answer is basically no, which, could potentially change in the future. But that's essentially what he gets to because of his crushing defeat, right? Whereas
absolutely
the film is like, no, Jerry wins, Archie gets defeated, Obi takes over. Like, it was just such a no, there was no triumph. Like, that's not part of how that story ends. And to kind of change that message, it kind of defeats most of the the body of the work. And just very frustrating.
Yeah. And it was interesting because as I was watching the ending, I found myself wondering, like, okay, how are we how are we going to get that moment of him acknowledging that he loved Big Brother, that he had been broken?
Completely.
Would it be sufficient? Because I kind of imagine as he was confessing all of his crimes and admitting his wrongdoing, it might have ended him with saying, I need you, I love Big Brother.
Yeah.
Although, whether or not that would be sufficient to convey to us that it was true.
Yeah.
Because even in the book, it's not him that says it. It's not I love Big Brother. It was the narrator saying he loved Big Brother.
Yeah.
And that narrator's voice, I think, it's
the omnipotence
that we know
that it's true. Yeah.
And so we would have needed to hear maybe an internal monologue of him, looking at himself, making the confession and realizing now
that he truly
I love Big Brother. But they just didn't do that at all, and instead have him longing for Julia, which,
Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, the end of this book, where he is completely broken, the system has done what it set out to do and has not only broken him physically, but broken him emotionally and in every facet, of his mind. Like, that is the scary part of the book, right? That is what this satire is trying to hammer home, is that if you let this system build up, there's really nothing that can stop it. It will break anyone, even the, strongest or most against the system, as, Winston essentially was. He was, fairly against it just intuitively. Anyone like that can be broken, right? No matter the hope, no matter the core of love that he had, right? Which is, you see that in a lot of, stories, is that, love can never
conquers
be defeated,
all.
right? No, not in a totalitarian regime.
No, exactly.
Right? Yeah, no, love did not conquer.
I do want to note that John Hurt and Susanna Hamilton, I thought both gave really, really fantastic performances in the film. Just, let down a little bit by maybe a script that had some sketchy.
And I mean, we sit here and we talk about, how it sucks to change the ending of the book and how the point is missed. But, obviously these are Hollywood movies and they have to test these endings with focus groups who have never, read this book, and they want a happy ending, so, we understand how this happens and why it happens, suppose. But it is still frustrating on some level.
It makes you wonder though, like how, I mean, I guess if it's just the end, it's not like it murders the point of 1984.
Not totally
that bad. Like, does it kill us to like have a semblance of hope that, love still might conquer dystopia? I mean, I suppose not.
But it's false. No.
There was an interesting controversy about the film's score. I just wanted to try to quickly mention.
Oh, was that banned?
In a way, yes.
The score was banned. Interesting. I like it.
So what happened was, I believe it was the production company hired the Eurythmics to do the score for the film.
Okay.
Whereas the director already had an orchestral score in mind that had been composed by Dominic Muldowney. And originally the production stepped in and said, no, we're going with the Eurythmics score.
Oh, wow.
No matter what you want. So in a sense, the original score was censored, was banned, and kept from release.
Had it been performed already?
I believe it had been recorded already.
Oh, wow.
Now, in current versions, like if you get the 2019 Criterion Collection edition of the film, you get both scores.
Okay, and you can select.
And you can choose which one. I'm pretty sure the one I watched is the one with Dominic Muldowney's score, because I didn't recognize the Eurythmics song in the credits, which is where one of them was supposedly playing. But because it wasn't, I had to do a little piracy in order to get my hands on it. I don't know for sure which version it was. It was a Criterion edition because it had the little Criterion logo at the beginning.
Okay.
But I'm not 100% sure what version I watched. But I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Like this feud over where the music is going to come from.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like what happened with Tim Burton's Batman, where Danny Elfman did the score for it, but then like the soundtrack released ended up being all these songs from Prince.
Yeah.
Very few of which are even in the movie.
Yeah.
But it was because, at that time, especially, film scores, orchestral scores weren't
Yeah.
really climbing up the
Exactly.
charts, and the opportunity to like sell
and they
your
were
movie with
always like available in the store, right? These orchestral
I don't know
albums.
I think Elfman had to fight to get his score.
No, I'm just saying, like in general, like you'd always see, back in the day when it was the tape shop or the record store or whatever,
Yeah.
you would always had a whole like section that was, soundtracks for movies, right? Which were essentially just orchestral scores for the most part, right? Rarely like
I don't know if in that time that's true. I think most soundtracks at that time,
well, yeah, they might have
were
had
like
some songs or
mostly
whatever,
pop
but
songs,
yeah,
that
but
were in the film.
but even like the orchestral ones, those albums were always there at the record store. I remember that like from when I was a kid going to the record store and seeing like, oh wow, like kind of every movie you could see at the video store, there was a soundtrack for it at the record store, right? And
Star Wars certainly.
Yeah, and lots of them were orchestral, right? Like unless it was a movie that had a lot of pop songs in it. Yeah. So I guess if they're really, struggling to kind of hit that market or compete in what was, probably an oversaturated soundtrack.
Well,
market.
yeah. And I think, any opportunity to release a new Prince album, is going to do numbers, right? So
yeah.
Anyway.
Interesting. Anything else controversial about that film version?
Not really. I thought one thing that was interesting is it was essentially filmed during the period of time that the book supposedly takes place.
Right.
So like sort of midsummer into fall of 1984, it was actually filmed during that period. And there is a little title card in the credits that point out that fact.
Okay.
It was filmed in England. There actually were a few locations that overlapped with Brazil, Terry Gilliam's Brazil, which is a very similar film, though slightly more comedic, that also came out the same year. So yeah, there were some locations that were used in both films, thus kind of proving that I guess there are certain areas in London at that time that looked more post-apocalyptic than others. And cinematography was done by Roger Deakins, who is like literally the only cinematographer that's famous enough that I know about him.
Okay.
But he is generally considered one of the best working cinematographers today. Oh, and there was no controversy around this, but there was an interesting film processing technique where bleach was used to kind of desaturate the prints. It wasn't actually done. It was actually done on the actual prints before they sent them out to theaters. It wasn't done prior to that, which is kind of rare.
Okay. So like it washes out color a little bit.
Yeah, but the process was recreated for this production by Key. The film is a very rare example of the technique being applied to every release print rather than the interpositive that was struck from the original camera negative or the internegative struck from the interpositive. As the silver is retained in the print and cannot be reclaimed by the lab, the cost is higher, but the retained silver gives a depth to the projected image. Apparently, there's a citation needed for that, so maybe that's not true. But I did notice it was generally fairly washed out, which I think matched the tone of the book.
Yeah, for sure.
When Winston and Julia meet in the woods for the first time, the greens do pop a little bit more, which I think does make sense.
Yeah.
It both in the sense that, they're out of the dreariness of the city.
Yep.
But it's also could be the sense of
there's less Big Brother, kind of involved in the
I think there's that.
Yeah.
But there's a charge of life in them at that moment, right? They're both
like
about
the budding romance.
The sexual energy between them that is just going to make, everything around them pop a little bit more. The idea that when you fall in love, everything smells a little bit fresher and everything tastes a little bit tastier. Yeah, all that. Yeah, so that's sort of where I'm at with the film. I thought it was a solid adaptation and, worth a watch if you're already familiar with the novel and are just really interested in kind of seeing it visually portrayed, because I do think that they did a pretty good job of sort of building the world it was in. And one of the things I thought was really interesting, which was, maybe intentional, maybe accidental, but Big Brother was almost always there, even subtly. I remember seeing shots where like Winston is looking out the window and you see the Big Brother poster behind him being
Like a
reflected in the window. And so it's not like on screen, but you still feel the presence
just always there
of the poster and of this face. It's this big mustachioed face.
Yeah.
Because apparently they did a contest.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to see who would be the face of Big Brother, and it was some comedian poster sent his mugshot in or whatever, and he won the chance to be Big Brother. I don't know if that's a contest I would want to win.
Yeah,
you look like the face of a semi-jovial but stern fascist leader.
Yeah, I mean, why not? There's no such thing as bad publicity.
That is true. That is true. Let's get back to talking about the book, I guess, and our final thoughts. Anything you want to start with, or?
Well, a thought that sprang to mind as you were talking about the movie and being worth a watch. I was thinking, unless you live in the United States right now, it might be more of a horror film
or a documentary.
Yeah, I just. The thoughts that have been running through my mind while we've gone through this book have really been rather political, right? And really I've been drawn to the similarities that are happening real time, essentially.
Yeah.
So some days it was, reading a bit of the book and then, seeing something on the news and going, wait a minute, that's like one for one right there. And, I really don't like that someone's using this like warning as a playbook rather than a warning.
Yeah.
And like that to me has been kind of the biggest takeaway is just like there's too many warning signs and similarities and things that come up in this book and techniques of manipulating the press or, changing the view of, well, the price of eggs are high. Well, they've always been high, or that's a good thing. And, oh, we can't get this. Well, that's fine. And, changing production numbers or job numbers and, like in real time. And it's just, it's very,
if there's one
frightening
like concept from the book that I think applies to what's the current political climate in the US, it's the notion of he who controls the past controls the present, and he who controls the past controls the future, and he who controls the present controls the past.
Yeah.
Because we are seeing that almost on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And have been through most of both of Trump's terms,
far more pronounced now.
Yeah. But I mean, even then, even in his first term, where you have these concepts of like
fake news,
alternative truth,
yeah,
and like the Bowling Green massacre, which was a thing that never happened, but like gets brought up in these conversations, in these press conferences,
Pizzagate, and all these kinds of things that are.
I mean, Pizzagate is less pushed by the administration. Yeah, but it's you have these things that come up that are just factually false, rewriting history, and people are like, no, I guess it's true because we heard it from Big Brother.
That's right.
Yeah, and the one thing I've kind of been thinking about in regards to the politics of the world of 1984, where you have Big Brother and you have Emmanuel Goldstein. It's interesting that Big Brother,
Joe Biden,
sorry,
or Joe Biden.
It's interesting that Big Brother is a it's not a proper name. Like it's not Donald Trump. It's not John Fitzgerald Kennedy. It's a concept.
Yeah,
and it's one that, at least originally, it's been, because of this book, it's been affected, I think. But originally, the idea of a Big Brother is someone
who
friendliness and warmth and protection. And I think, in a way, in much the same way that like the war in 1984 is intended to be ongoing, Big Brother is intended to be a leader,
an eternal
figure
symbol,
that is eternal.
Yeah.
Regardless of who actually is in power.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Winston asks, I think more than once, like, is Big Brother real, or is he alive, or something like that? And there's no satisfactory answer.
Well, I mean, he does get told, like, yes, Big Brother is real,
I mean,
but
yeah.
in what sense? I think he asks, and again, I could be mixing this up because I just watched the movie and this is how it plays out in the movie, but I think it's pretty close to the book. But he follows up with, like, is he real like I am? And is told by O'Brien, you're not real. Which again, I think is true in the sense of saying you're not important. Yeah. You're just a meaningless cog that, lives or dies based on what we choose for you. Mm-hmm. But it is, the people who look at Donald Trump as being like their big brother, their friend, the one who's looking out for them while he's lining the pockets of all of his billionaire buddies. He has found a way to kind of fit that role of appearing to care for the average person because he's just able to lie constantly and have it be believed.
Well, and backed up by his posse.
Yeah.
Of, I don't even know what to call them in this administration. I mean, not professionals, really, but he's got this squad of
sycophantic lapdogs, really.
Exactly. But I mean, it's definitely, these parallels of even looking at his rallies and things like versus the 2 minutes of hate from the book, right? Where he just, he gets people riled up and, the whole point of the book is that
lock her up.
It's kind of this cathartic release of rage that could potentially be directed at Big Brother, but now we direct it towards the quote unquote enemy, whoever that happens to be at the time, right? Yeah. If it's Hunter Biden or Hillary or whoever it is, right? Same thing. We'll rile everybody up, direct their anger somewhere else so that I can still be, Big Brother and, still be the benevolent protector, right? And
and very much like, the shifting, wars, who you're at war with changes. It nobody cares that we've now left Hillary Clinton behind and we've now left Hunter Biden behind and it's just someplace else to put your rage.
There has to be an enemy.
There has to be
Doesn't matter who, right? Yeah, it's shocking how close some of this stuff is to real life. And, I was at the grocery store earlier today and I know we talked a little bit before we started about price of eggs and things like that. But
price of Eggo waffles.
It is interesting. So in the book, I mean, in this dystopian world, they don't have enough razor blades or, there's, a shortage of chocolate or that's being rationed or whatever.
No, they're getting an increase in chocolate.
Well, exactly. Right. And this is like the thing that you see happening right now is, price of eggs has gone up crazy, but, according to the Trump administration, well, it's not that bad, or the eggs, the price is actually decreasing now when it really isn't. But this is the story that's coming out, or, that manufacturing jobs are coming back when they're not. And, all these like mistruths and lies about what's really happening with, production, even though really, people are feeling the hurt in, inflation and the damage from tariffs and the lack of certain supplies and goods because of that. But, oh no, things
are
great.
Biden's fault, though. That's all stuff that was handled when Biden was running the country, and Trump is now turning it around.
Yeah, Trump's actually taking Biden's tariffs down, so that's great. No, but, like these concepts of misinformation and mistruth and changing numbers, right? The job numbers come out, and, well, we're just going to fire that guy and create our own numbers. And, like, this is happening, like, almost, exactly how these things were going on in the book, right?
Yeah.
It's shocking that we have access to this book. This book is, I think, taught in schools sometimes, or, at least, some of the concepts are alluded to, and, people just are going, yeah, I'm fine with it. Big Brother's watching out for me, but like, he's not. As we see in the book, life isn't great. There's shortages, price increases, like life is not good.
But everyone is being told it's better than it was.
You're being told that it's better, right? Oh yes, the last administration, they screwed everything up, right? We're helping out and we'll get through these tough times together and make things great again. Like, this is really like almost directly from the book. And it's, I mean, I know we talked about like the Trump administration kind of using this as a blueprint, but doing it stupider.
Yeah, right.
It's
Yeah.
like they're taking these concepts, but they're executing on like a elementary school level. But I mean, the naked parallels here are just astounding. Rewriting the truths, or
Yeah.
like making sure that people don't really remember what happened, alternative facts, like the story constantly changing, trying to control the present to own the past.
There's
right?
two things that I think about when looking at it looking at America in that sense. First is it feels like, thankfully, the country isn't quite at 1984 yet.
Yeah.
Like
The
maybe
yet is kind of the crazy part of that.
right,
sense,
but it's moving in that direction,
Yeah.
right? It feels like maybe it's 1979,
Yeah.
which makes me wonder like what a prequel to 1984 might look like.
Yeah. But the revolution is happening, right? Like in the book, there was a revolution against the capitalists that led to this regime of Big Brother, right? And that essentially is kind of where you see the US right now, or at least that's how I see it, is they're in the midst of that actually happening, where there's this revolution happening, but it's not a revolution that's going to be good for anyone.
No.
Or for most people, right?
No. The other thing that makes me wonder about within the world of 1984 is what does East Asia and Eurasia, what do those countries think? What is their perspective of, which was sort of a big part of The Handmaid's Tale. It's another, dystopian novel. This issue of in The Handmaid's Tale, Canada was sort of always there as this potential thing that you could escape to,
like
as a bastion
haven,
of freedom. And I didn't find myself thinking a whole lot through 1984 because you're so locked into the world of that book. But it made me wonder what other countries looking in on that would have thought. And because that's kind of where we are right now, from Canada looking in on the US and sort of feeling a little bit of it bleed over into our world. Hopefully, not hopefully, but thankfully, just a little bit so far. But it's what does that look like?
I think the biggest thing in the book, right, is when Winston gets the book, like the book of the Brotherhood written by Goldstein, right, that kind of explains what's happening in the world in the way that he's kind of intuitively already understood it. This book presents the fact that, Eurasia and East Asia are basically doing similar things, right? They have similar regimes and similar doctrines and similar, just different names, but essentially it's the same type of operation where they oppress their citizens. They have the proletariat, they have the party members, and it's very similar. So I think the shocking thing is that, like, this is happening in multiple places all at once, this revolution, right? So whatever happens in Oceania, right, in the British realm, right, that kind of revolution or that kind of change seems to be happening, or at least kind of the way the book terms it is that it kind of happens everywhere, right? And these groups, these other kind of large geographical areas go through a very similar revolution and come up with a similar system at the same time.
Right.
And I think the scary thing is that, we see, like, with Russia and the war in Ukraine, and like that's like just ongoing in a constant war, and we see China kind of like building up this kind of social credit system, and like we kind of see this happening, and maybe not to the same extent as how things are devolving in the US, but there are kind of some parallel branches happening in the world where, potentially similar to this book, right? If everything turns to shit, it may turn to shit in several places at the same time, right? They may look to the States and go, well, they're subjugating their population. Why can't we? And, like, let's roll with it, right? Like, let's just do it,
It looks like so much
gloves
fun.
are off. Yeah. What could go wrong for an upper party member, right?
We got a few people who have joined us here. We need to talk with Nick B has entered the live studio, along with Fax Porcupine Podcast and Angeli.
Yeah.
Fax Porcupine Podcast has liked the show and also said, hello, host. The Democrats are in a whole lot of thicker with themselves. You got to wait 3 years and 2 months Not sure what you're getting at there, Facts Porcupine podcast. But,
yeah, maybe if you can comment again, Facts Porcupine.
If you can lay it out a little bit.
Is that a message of hope, or is that that things are going to get worse?
Valid question.
Yeah, because I mean, the problem is, no matter the party, right? The politics are very similar.
The
execution and the methodology and like how it's presented, I think, to the public are very different things. But ultimately, the rich want to be rich and,
fuck everybody else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on.
It's not been as brazen as it has been under Trump. And I think that opens up the door for like things to never go back to the way they were.
Yeah, once you cross a certain line, each time you push the envelope. Yeah.
At the same time, it's frustrating for me as I'm a left-wing guy. Obviously my politics align more with liberal than conservative, but personally I'm further left of most, liberal parties. And you look at what the Democrats in the US are doing, and they could be doing so much more, I think, to push back, against Trump. They're still playing by the old rules, and
Trump is throwing those rules to the wind, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So Facts Porcupine saying that the New York rich want to stay rich. Yeah, I think we all know that. But the socialism movement is pushing back. So it sounds like a bit of a message of hope that, there is.
I guess it depends on whether you're a socialist or hints of socialism.
I guess that, maybe that's not that hopeful, but at least that, this regime will not last.
Yeah.
I guess can have some hope in that.
I don't know that there's, a perfect system under which we can, all collectively survive to the best of our abilities. But I don't think
the only way is to become a hive mind.
Capitalism isn't it. There we go. Let's
the only way.
Let's just become Borg.
Yeah, that's really,
the Borg. Yeah.
The Borg, but like less aggressive to other species,
Yeah.
I mean, really, that's the only way. But also, when I say that, that's kind of what Big Brother was trying to do, was to read everyone's minds as well, right? So maybe, we have to be more clear on what a perfect hive mind might be.
You have to wonder, like, where is the centralization of, like, where's the money going in 1984? Mm-hmm. Is it just going to the war? Like, are there people at the top who are making gobs and gobs of money while everybody is, like, going 8 weeks on their one razor blade?
I would imagine so. I mean, it's about production. It's about, consuming, right? Yeah. There's that aspect of it. So, there certainly is a lack of supply of most goods. So pricing and, the ability to source those is going to be a great concern for everyone. I mean, going with just the one uniform of the overalls kind of limits, some industry around textiles, which, was kind of big in those days.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems to be very much consumer driven. Also, I think we're not ever really sure how much war is actually really happening.
No, that's a good point.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't know how many fronts there are, we don't know the sizes of the armies, right? We know that
there could be none.
Yeah. There could be very little actual war happening.
Yeah.
Right.
Because the whole point is just, as long as you control the message, as long as you control the information that's getting into people's minds.
You parade some soldiers or prisoners around every now and then, and okay, well, who knows where they came from and if they were actually fighting in the war or not. Maybe they just found a bunch of people, dressed them up in uniforms, paraded them through the square and said, these are prisoners of war. And I mean, they never see those guys again. So yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely when we see O'Brien's house, right? And he's got, a lot nicer amenities. He's got servants. He's got, like there definitely seems to be some, maybe not capitalistic, but definitely a sense of money flowing to the upper echelon of the party, whether that's, people actually owning production or that just those profits come to the party and filter up to the, the highest members were not really made clear, because Winston's not really concerned so much with that through his journey in the book.
Right.
But I think we get a sense that regardless of if there's ownership of production or if it's just kind of controlled by the party, that any excess, any profit is going to the top members, right? They have fancier food. They've got real food,
Yeah.
real coffee, real gin, real, lobster, whatever it is, right? That they're able to obtain versus the, not even real chocolate potentially. That's part of the allowance given to, the lower party members.
I was going to just quickly go over some of the bannings of this book.
Well, hang on. We've got another question
do we?
here. Just curious to hear your gentleman's thoughts about the ending. What is the significance of Winston's final transformation? He loved Big Brother. What does the ending suggest about the total victory of the party over the individual?
Wow.
Some deep
That
stuff.
sounds like some book club questions.
Yeah.
We were talking about that a little bit earlier in the context of the movie, because the movie sort of changes the point of the ending. I think the book definitely implies that there's no escape from the party.
Yeah.
That the party's control is complete and total. And
I think leading up to that ending, right? So the last part 3 of the book, which is essentially Winston's imprisonment, interrogation, room 101, all of that process, he puts up a fight. I don't think you can deny that he, at least mentally, puts up quite the fight.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think at one point O'Brien says, you've been here for 7 years or something like that, right?
I don't think it ever gets to years, but
I'm pretty sure.
I think we disputed this last
time. I'm pretty sure I read that. I'm going to have to go find that. But he's been there for a long time, whether it's 7 months, 7 years. I mean, he's, he didn't keel over in the first few days, right? He's put up a lengthy, protracted fight trying to preserve his, internal view of the party and hope of a revolution, or hope of being able to, see a future where the party cannot maintain their current, iron grip over the populace, right? He maintains this hope, maintains that he is better than the party, right? That his knowledge of what's really happening in the world is true, right? And even deeper in his core, hangs on to his love for Julia and the fact that he hasn't betrayed her for quite a long time.
Yeah.
But the party just keeps on relentlessly going after him. And they break him physically first, right? Which I think is probably the easier. I haven't ever protractedly tortured anyone, so I don't know.
Or been protractedly tortured yourself.
or vice versa.
Yeah.
But I would imagine the physical kind of breaking is easier to do.
Yeah.
And so they get that, and then really start to work on the mind. And when we get to that ending, we know that, because this is one thing that O'Brien, through kind of the later stages of the torture, especially after he's allowed to heal a little bit and physically kind of recover, that it's told to him, O'Brien basically says, until you truly love Big Brother, we're not done with you.
Yeah.
Right. And so the significance, I think, at the end is that we get that knowledge from our omnipresent narrator that, they were successful in completely breaking him. There's no shred of anything left. The final straw, or the final, whatever he may have been hanging on to, if he even had some secret, hidden core of emotion that he was able to, it didn't happen. He's been completely broken.
I do think that there are two questions, though, that sort of stick in my mind about that last bit. And the first is it possible to lock yourself down to the point that Big Brother and, the ministries and all of that can't get access to the thing that will break you in room 101?
Oh, so that there's no way that they would ever be able to even understand how to get at your greatest fear? I feel like with the telescreens...
The other thing is it possible to... So basically, we have this assumption that because Winston said, do it to Julia, that means he's broken. But could you not just say that and not mean it?
Well, I think that's a debate that happens almost, out loud between O'Brien and Winston during these scenes of torture, right? Is that O'Brien seems to imply that he knows when Winston is not being sincere with what he's
True, that is a good
expressing,
point.
right?
Yeah.
So I think if he would have said that and not meant it, that
The rats would have eaten
O'Brien,
his eyes.
yeah, O'Brien would have released the rats, and yeah, right, like I feel like they know what they're doing. Winston is obviously not the first to go through
Yeah.
this, right? And I think the system has, they've probably worked out the kinks and they kind of know what they're doing in terms of the torture and this kind of rigorous protocol to break down someone mentally.
And I think to an extent there's a required suspension of disbelief in order to say, like, we acknowledge that the party is capable of knowing when someone is lying and when they're not.
I think to answer that question, what I would say, and maybe less so for Winston, because he was pre-revolution, right? Like he was born before the revolution happened. Even though he was young, he was born and has memories. But I would imagine that the way they have the system set up, right, with the telescreens constantly watching your every move, and even where they can't have telescreens, they've got microphones and they've got ways of tracking everything that you're up to. That constant surveillance, right? Whether you even know it or not, especially going from a child, right? So, observing children and how they mature and how they develop gives the party, essentially this kind of inner view of like what a child fears, what a child likes, and they are able to track that over years and years and years. And I think especially the younger you are, it's very difficult to hide, right? When we're introduced to the adults in this book, they're very much stone faced, don't show emotions, like never let the telescreen know what you're really thinking. But I can't imagine that children are operating in that same way. And so they're going to have a lot of data, a lot of information about what makes people tick from a period in their lives where they would not be very skilled at hiding their true feelings.
Yeah. Okay.
And so again, maybe less relevant for Winston, although he grew up in that, kind of revolution where it was happening, right? He stole the chocolate from his sister and that, so he was still quite young, but not old enough that he certainly didn't seem like a well put together, meticulous child in those days. True. He was pretty rough. But, that data of, tracking a child through to maturity and into their adult years, I think we could say that if they're doing it correctly, that would give them the information to be able to find your darkest fear and know whether you're lying or know whether you're telling the truth, just because they would know you in a much, kind of almost more intimate level than yourself.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's the focus of the party, is that they're trying to do that in order to ensure that, they know what people are thinking before they're thinking. And that's why they have the thought police and not the regular police, right? Is that they have so much data on you that if you do something that is not in line with your expected behavior, they go, oh, they're thinking something different, and let's try and figure that out.
Yeah. Got another interesting question in here. Sorry, I didn't finish my thought. Since this book is a frequent reference to today's socioeconomic situation, how far off do you think we are to us as a society buying into it all? How has AI moved us closer to 1984? I realize you said in comparison we may be in 1979. I can't help but think we are in the thick of it. The devices in our pockets collect all the data they need, don't they?
Yeah.
AI is an interesting angle on this because it does reduce the number of people you need monitoring all of these things.
Yeah. I mean, in the book, it's these vast ministries of people updating records and changing the past and scrubbing the world for a news story and making sure that it's, been deleted and republished. And AI as a tool now, you can definitely see the ability to not have to have an army of people at typewriters and memory holes and things, because you have this tool that can scour the world for any information that is, the wrong ideology, right? Whether it's at the Smithsonian or wherever, we can just delete these things republish it, move on, and we don't have to then also incorporate a bunch of people into the scam. So I think, as a tool, and what we were just talking about as well, in terms of collecting data and learning trends and, how people think and being able to analyze them and know what they're thinking and their deepest fear and all that kind of stuff. AI potentially could be a great tool for that.
Yeah.
Right. Feeding in enormous amounts of data in a whole person's life.
I also think it has the potential to be incredibly powerful in regards to propaganda. I mean, already you cannot go on Facebook without seeing people sharing AI garbage that isn't real. And I've done this myself, and I feel like I have a pretty good eye for AI. But I've shared things on TikTok with my kid who's responded and been like, "I think that's AI, Dad," and it's like, "Oh yeah, it probably is."
Yeah.
But as AI gets better, and as we collectively get dumber, it's going to be a nightmare to try to figure out what's real and what's not.
It already is.
It already is.
It already is, right? There's, like you said, like it's a challenge, especially if you're not in the moment thinking critically, right? A lot of us will scroll through stuff and go, "Oh, that's kind of neat." And even if it's innocuous, if it is AI or if it is, some form of propaganda, and we share it and we go, "Oh, look at this funny thing," but it's actually a veiled satirical kind of meme or whatever it is, right? Like, we're now just propagating that, even though, we should maybe know better, or in a more clear, and rational moment, we would have been like, "Oh, wait a minute, that's for sure AI." Again, as you said, as we collectively get dumber and doom scroll more and then that kind of thing, and as AI gets sharper and sharper as a tool, we're far more susceptible to that, and to people like Trump and his administration using that against the population. So I still think that we are, as you said, like maybe we're 1979 or we're somewhere pre 1984, and we're I think still potentially pre-revolution that led to 1984, but we're close. And I think in that environment in the US.
I think at the very least, if we're not already at a post-truth kind of world, we are on the cusp where there's just truth ceases to have any kind of meaning anymore, where there are literally people who will believe things that I mean, the increase in anti-vax, the fact that I watched a doctor responding to a woman on TikTok today about how cancer isn't bad for you. Cancer is your body reacting to toxins. And the worst thing you can do for cancer is cut it out, because it will release all those toxins into your body. And there are people saying these things, and there are people believing these things. And pretty soon there will be AI videos that
prove it,
appear to prove it.
Even thinking of like peer-reviewed studies and things like that. How soon will it be till AI is publishing papers, quote unquote, or, takes over these peer-reviewed journals altogether, and we've lost science.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's no truth.
Yeah. Well, like,
not that science is the truth necessarily, right? But it's our way of exploring.
It's the only way that we can accurately explore the truth. And you have like RFK Jr. releasing these. I can't remember, like there were this report that he put out that, like,
the food guide one, or
I don't think it was, maybe it was the food guide one, but it was one that had a bunch of, like, it was created by AI, and it referenced a bunch of sources or that didn't happen, that were just invented.
Yeah.
Angeli had a comment on another interesting comment, Todd. Thank you very much. Regarding the kids being more attuned. My children can tell a lot in a second what is AI. I feel like it's a commentary on our upbringing. To be honest, we were guinea pigs for a lot in terms of government, law, and technology. I think it's reminding me of sort of like when I was younger, and seeing the older generation get sucked into different online scams, and phishing attempts and things like that, and how our more tech savvy people would like roll our eyes and be like, "I can't believe you fell for that." And now I am falling for AI. Because it looks good, and right now it's mostly innocuous, the ones I fall for. I think the famous one that I shared with my kid is it's been a thing on TikTok to the point that somebody wrote a song about it. Now the song is a meme, but it's like the rabbits jumping on a trampoline. It was this
Okay.
this footage of like somebody's outside camera. It's got like, and I think part of the reason it works and is convincing is because it was shot in like a night vision kind of thing. So
Right.
everything's sort of like white and black, and it's hard to make out details. And it was this trampoline supposedly in somebody's backyard
And the rabbits are
that
just
had,
having fun.
well, I think initially it was like a raccoon, and then the raccoon comes back with a bear, and then eventually there's all these rabbits, and it's all AI, but it's in a way it feels harmless because it's just these things jumping on something, and you think, oh, this is cute, and you send it to somebody,
but it's that little chink at our objectivity.
Exactly.
Each of those videos.
Exactly.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, just about the kids though. I mean, I think, in the book, definitely they use the kids as spies, right? Against parents, against the adults, right?
Yep.
So they're using that perception of the kids, right? And I think, yes, our kids are perceptive, but I think similar to us, they'll grow, and as the tools improve, but they kind of, get to that age where, 25 or wherever, you kind of stop maturing necessarily. And now you're kind of more stuck in your ways, right? As the tools improve, as AI gets better, right? Your ability to perceive, I think, will be diminished, right? So once you kind of get older and you're more stuck in your ways, right? Your mind is less malleable, less objective potentially, right? Less of that potentially creative energy of a kid, and the tools just keep getting better and smarter. And
yeah, the thing is that we need to make sure though that we are raising our kids to be good critical thinkers,
for sure.
And I think that's something that unfortunately a lot of people do have trouble with, because I think most people to some extent do indoctrinate their kids to their own ideas.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I'm a lefty, so, I am to some extent raising my kid with those values, but I also try to make sure that I'm teaching my child how to look at a situation and think critically about it. And I think that is more important than teaching your own values. And that's hard for a lot of people. You can see that in their reaction to things like, oh, my kid shouldn't be allowed to read a book with gay characters in it because they could turn gay. In spite of the fact that, like, there have been millions of gay children that have been inundated with heterosexual literature and have not turned straight. Although maybe it's just way cooler to be gay. I don't know.
Wow.
Maybe we just haven't read enough books yet.
I feel like, maybe years ago, the suffering that came with it did not make it cooler. But yeah, I agree with you that, teaching that critical thinking is important. But I also think that at a certain point, because I know for us, right, we were critical thinkers growing up to some extent. I won't say how great, we were at that, but there is a point in your life where, whether it's weariness of age or, whatever it is, that the ability to maybe dull the senses a little bit, right? Like we talked about the AI videos, and, you see them and you go, oh yeah, that's AI. But after a while, you just, oh, that's a fun video and I'm going to share that. Right. And that critical view starts to soften a little bit, right? Especially, getting into, I won't say that we're very old per se, but, as we get into middle age, solidly into middle age, yes,
late middle age for some of us, perhaps.
And that, that real critical thought, even if it's been ingrained in you, starts to wane a little bit, right? And that's the danger, because we are often, even looking at our politicians, right? Like, these are old people.
Yeah.
These are not young people with, vim and vigor and still a really, critical, rational approach to the world, right? We're seeing, old white dudes typically, right? But older people with money, or people that want to maybe preserve power. And these are the people that are, making laws or trying to critically look at what's happening in the world in terms of AI and that kind of thing. And, I don't think that's maybe the recipe for success.
It's also, I think, easy to apply critical thinking skills to perspectives you don't agree with, right? It's easy to look at,
for sure.
for me, like the conservative memes, and be like, oh, well, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But,
when it's in your own backyard.
When it's in your own backyard, I think I was probably, or if not me, I've seen people who were guilty of, for example, sharing the meme of like Trump saying, like, if I ever ran for president, I'd run as a Republican because those people are so stupid they'd believe anything.
Mm-hmm.
And people share it because it aligns with what they think of Donald Trump. He never said it.
Yeah.
And it's because you're not applying those critical thinking skills to that as well. You're not stopping and saying, is this true?
Yeah.
You can verify it pretty quickly. And
for now,
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
In another year, we'll have, you'll be able to generate an AI of him saying it. Then who fucking knows what's true?
Exactly.
I did want to say, I did a quick Googling, and as much as I hate AI, I cannot remove AI from Google. And so here's the AI overview of how long Winston was in the Ministry of Love.
Okay.
He was arrested. He and Julie were arrested in August of 1984.
Sure.
When I was 11 years old.
Yeah.
They were imprisoned. They spent the winter of 1984 and 85 in the Ministry of Love, and they were released in March of 1985.
Okay.
So it sounds like
maybe it was 7 months.
7 months seems like it could be reasonable, but not
7 years.
Not 7 years.
Okay. Well, welcome to Jesse, who has joined us as well.
I think Jesse has actually gone now.
Jesse's gone.
We only have 3 listeners right now, and that's you, me, and Anjali.
All right. Well,
but thank you for the follow.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse.
We are about an hour and 12 minutes, so we should be wrapping things up fairly soon, I guess. I did want to throw out, because I did look it up, where this book has been banned over the years. I got a few of these things at bannedlibrary.com. They cite in 1950, it was banned and burned in communist Russia under Stalin and USSR.
1950?
1950. Probably 1950-ish.
Yeah, because wasn't it not published till 1954?
1949.
49. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Ownership meant a possible arrest for its anti-communist views, and it was allowed back in the country after editing in 1990. I would be curious to see what
about
edited...
The irony.
Edited, allowed in Russia version of 1984 is.
Talk about the irony there of right? Memory holing a bunch of 1984 before you let it into your country. Wow.
1981, it was banned in Jackson County, Florida. It's always Florida.
Yeah.
Challenged for being pro-communist and contained explicit sexual content. Wrenshell, Minnesota. We don't have a year, and this is apparently unconfirmed, but it says a teacher was fired for refusing to remove it from a reading list. 2009 to 2010. I remember, I think, when this happened. Amazon deleted it and Animal Farm from users' Kindles, sparking controversy.
Wow.
Amazon found that the copies deleted had been published illegally from an independent publisher that had ignored copyright laws. 1984 is or was under copyright until 2020. Although that could be an issue with territories, because America's copyright laws last longer than they do in other countries. So it could have been that this company did have the right to publish it, but not into the US.
Yeah.
So this was more of a recall to protect copyright than a ban or censorship case, but it was still, I do remember, if it wasn't
still
this,
maybe felt a little Big Brother-ish to
right?
have it disappear off your device.
Wake up one day and all of a sudden this book that you owned is just removed.
Yeah.
And then 2017 in Idaho, the book is under scrutiny after being challenged by a Jefferson County parent for having violent, sexually charged language.
I mean,
I'm not remembering a lot of
like violent language.
Well, there's a comma here, which makes it seem like maybe it's all one thing. So it's violent and sexually charged, which I don't know. I
don't think there was much of it.
They talk about sex as being kind of an act of revolution, which I guess is somewhat sexually charged, but
yeah. I mean,
in a way, like I think it's That's one of the more interesting elements of the book that I found was this idea of sex as a revolutionary act.
Mm-hmm.
And it is sort of in the way that you are reclaiming your autonomous nature.
Yeah.
And of course, this is a society where sex is
Frowned
upon, diminished,
Yeah.
you're only for procreation kind of
Exactly.
thing. I don't recall if they get into a lot of details about why that is, if like sex just makes you so kind of wild and crazy that
I think it's about like the emotional connection and that things like love and attraction are tougher to control, right? Because they're not rational, right? Like and if these emotions kind of get too intense, that it's another thing that could potentially turn against Big Brother.
Which, in a way, is kind of that central point of the book, is that the final way of breaking Winston is breaking that love and passion he has for Julia.
Yeah.
So Angeli says, as things move more to tech, easier it will be for the powers to censor and ban what we read and see. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, unfortunately, that's good and bad for us in the sense that the more things that are banned, the more things we can talk about on this podcast. So that'll keep us going, but also a great sadness for the world and for art.
But I mean, it's very possible for, us to be, not far away from a world where our purchases of a book are not just removed from our Kindles, but the fact that we ever purchased it could be erased. Yeah. The fact that the book ever existed could be erased. And then, you're just a guy going, I swear I read a book named 1984. And then everybody else is like, no, I Googled it. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Never existed. You're out of your mind.
Yeah, you're crazy.
But here is my favorite pop song from 1984, which is an AI generated pop song that didn't even come out in 1984.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a scary world.
It's a scary world.
And, as Angeli pointed out, like we are getting closer to that every day.
Yeah.
Right. Misinformation, mistruth. The ability of not being able to fact check something.
Yeah.
Right. And determine what is true or not. It just gives so much power to those that can control that.
Yep.
Very frightening. All right. Anyway, back to the book. Oh, wait. Yeah. That's exactly what happens in the book. Yeah. So any other kind of interesting places where this has been banned?
That is let's see. I think that's the majority of what I brought. I was looking for it in the list of, most banned books of there we go. 79th of the most banned books between 2010 and 2019. So kind of low on the list, but
still popping.
Still frequently, still popular.
Still popping.
Yeah.
People are still upset.
I did notice that because we're making, it's not up here now. Hang on. We're making plans for what we're covering in the next few weeks, months, etc. The book that we were talking about, we're not going to name it yet, but I think it was number 3 or number 4 of the most banned books of 2024, which makes it, even more fitting.
Yeah.
Any further final thoughts on 1984?
Yeah. We talked about this book really dragging you in almost against your will into this world, right? Like you really get sucked in. And I know we were talking about the movie and how, not really seeing the internal monologue of Winston maybe makes that tougher.
Yeah.
But we're immediately kind of put into the mind of Winston and his struggles in terms of dealing with this world and this, kind of dystopian kind of future. And the hits just keep coming through the book, right? I mean, there's the odd little kind of funny piece, when he goes to the pub with the pearls, but it's great. It's a dreary world, and there's not a lot of joy. Everything's a struggle. And even when he finds love, quote unquote, with Julia, that's a struggle. They can't meet all the time. It's clandestine kind of secrecy. And, it's just, there's no freedom.
Yeah.
Right. They're constantly monitored, and it keeps getting worse. So anytime there's any little gain, it's taken away. right? And the end of the book, the whole third part is a study in breaking someone psychologically, and the fact that the party has the power to do that over and over to however many individuals come up against it and come out, victorious every time, apparently, or, they shoot you or they have people begging for death, essentially. Like, it is, even though it's a good read and it's well written, it is dreary, and it is definitely a tough ending where there's not hope, right? I think that's the right ending, right? I think that's, in terms of the satire and in terms of this as a bit of a warning, I think we need to be there. But it's tough. It's a tough message to go like, hey, if this, if you let this revolution happen and you don't think critically and you don't fight against it, this system will be unbreakable. You cannot beat it. Once it's there, once they, get the machine in place, you cannot fight it. It's done. Humanity's over, right? And that's, this terrifying underlying kind of theme of the book, that if we don't fight now, right, or if we see these things happening, which we've talked about the parallels a lot between some of the things happening in the US and elsewhere in the world, if we don't fight now against it, right, and we, and let's say we're in 1979 now, and we let 5 or 10 years go by of, AI and, misinformation, we're going to get to a point where we can't fight it. Right. And I think for me, like, it's scary, but a message kind of well received, right? Where we go, yeah, like that terror of living in that world and not being able to fight against it and not being able to ever really, tear that system down is the warning well received, and something that we need to kind of, put into practice now. So, for me, I think this book resonates a lot more than when I read it when I was younger, right? Especially because things that are happening in the world now lining up way too closely. But like, that warning feels a lot more timely and something that I want to listen to more. And I don't know. I think, I just appreciate the fact that we've read it now and that we can see those parallels, and I don't know, I think gives me the will to kind of maybe try and think a little more critically and try and kind of combat what I'm seeing out there. And I get it. I'm, a dude in Canada with maybe not a lot of say or anything like that, but I still recognize the danger, right? And this book really kind of highlights, I mean, this is written in the 40s, the 1940s, and couldn't be more relevant than today. And that's scary. And that, that sure makes me want to, again, appreciate George Orwell and appreciate the book, because it is a great book. But the message is terrifying, and we gotta take it to heart.
You'd like to think that we would have learned better by now, and not going down this kind of hole again.
Yeah. History's doomed to repeat itself. I don't know. Like, who knows? But it's scary. And the fact that, as some of the people that have joined the room have mentioned about AI and some of these tools that are now available versus having a ministry full of, people doing this. We can have, one AI do the job of thousands in terms of misinformation. It's scary. It's very scary.
I agree.
Yeah.
As always,
we like to leave you all on a high note.
On a high note, yeah, exactly. Cheer up, everybody.
No happy endings
things
in
can
1984.
Get worse. We're not quite in 1984 yet.
That's
We're only
right.
in like maybe 1975, 79, something like that.
But things can also get better. There's still hope for us in reality right now. Unless AI
just barely.
Unless AI is changing our podcast as we speak.
God, they could be too. You can find all of our
ratings.
Reading.
We got to rate this book.
Oh, we got to rate this book.
Yeah. That's tough.
I think I'm around 4 shots of Victory Gin out of 5.
Okay. I think I'm probably like more of a 4.5, like pictures of Big Brother yelling at me out of 5. But like it's it's close to perfect.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it really brings you into the world, and as terrible as it is, it brings you there, and like you experience it. Again, there's a few things, right, in terms of technology or whatever that, are maybe not jiving completely per se, but the overall basis of it. And even I know we talked about in an earlier episode where there's like a textbook within the book that we have to read, and that kind of drug on. But even that provides yet another window into everything that's going on within this world. And, as terrible as it is, like it is just so clearly laid out, right? And you feel and you experience the terror of this world.
Yeah.
And so I think that's close to perfect in terms of what the book is trying to get across.
I mean, I might be closer to a 4.5, I guess.
I'm not trying to sway you. I'm just saying for myself.
It's just, it is, as well written as it is and as prescient as it is sometimes so bleak.
Yeah.
Even
but that is part of it.
I know that. I know that. And I know you're not supposed to criticize a book for being what it is or what it isn't or whatever, but it's hard sometimes to just take
and your rating is based on
unapologetic bleakness of it. And maybe I'm also adjusting my rating because of how bleak the world is looking when we compare it to it. And it's like, well, maybe we wouldn't be here if this book didn't exist to inspire people to try to reproduce this. Would we have dodged this? Probably not.
Yeah.
But
may have been more difficult.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But you're right. I mean, it is incredibly well written. It's not. It's very tight. Like, again, not a lot of wasted stuff. Everything, either world builds or character builds, or, it's a pretty solidly written book. I can't fault much of it except its relentless bleakness.
Yeah. I think you're right though, in terms of the current environment, or whenever you read something, it's going to influence, I think, how you rate it or how you react to it, right? So, reading this in the 80s, right, when things were pretty, a lot better maybe in the world.
Yeah.
That it might kind of strike you as like less bleak and more like, oh, this is fantastical and not, the mirror of reality that I'm seeing. Whereas nowadays it is. But I mean, for me, I think, it's well written, but the warning is so apropos right now that we can't ignore it. And 4.5 angry big brothers out of 5.
So go find someone to fuck as a act of rebellion, or stand up against Big Brother
Big Brother does not want you fucking anyone.
But we do.
Yeah.
We do.
We would we want you to go out and have fun. That's what we're all about.
As always, you can find all of our good stuff at blahblahblahmedia.com, BLAHBLAHBLAH media. That's our website. It's got all of our podcasts. It's got links to our socials. It's got links to our Buy Us a Coffee link, which will also buy us a beer. It's got link to our merch store.
Yeah.
Coming up next.
Yeah, next we're going to get into film.
Next, we're going to take a break from.
But we're not going to stray too far.
Well, no, we're not. We're not straying too far. We're going to a slightly different dystopia to cover a film that was almost called 1984 and a half. We're going to be looking at Terry Gilliam's Brazil, also from 1984. One of my favorite movies of all time. I haven't seen it in a very long time, so we'll see if my feeling about it still holds up.
Yeah. It's a different world now.
It's a very different world now. Maybe it's even more prescient. And then after that, we have another book lined up that we're not going to announce yet. I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
Anything else that we need to?
I mean, I think the one thing that I would say is, if you're in a place where this book has been banned, go find this book and read this book. And you may really understand why the place you're in has banned it.
Well, I think, if you're ever in a place where any book has been banned,
for sure,
track that book down and read it, because there's a reason they don't want you to read it, and it's never a good reason. And if there's one thing that I have learned from the
There is one book, I guess, but
If there's one thing I've learned from the years of doing this podcast is that 99% of the time, a banned book is a fucking amazing book.
Yeah.
Like, they don't generally ban bad literature.
Yeah.
Like, not only are banned books, controversial, but they're exceptionally well written.
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of the reason is that they make their point so effectively because of how well they're written that they have to be.
They can't be ignored as easily, right?
Yeah, so you have to make sure that they're hidden. So yeah, go read 1984 or watch the movie or just go fuck somebody
who's read it.
Who has read it. Yeah, absorb.
If you're out and you meet someone who's read the book,
just fuck them and absorb it through osmosis.
That's right.
Until next time, I have been Todd Sullivan.
I've been Peter Abbott, and go read a fucking book.